everyone, and welcome to the Ion Canon Podcast, your home on the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network for in-depth discussion on lore, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Joel, and joining me across the continent is my buddy Matthew. Matthew, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Sorry for the delay, everyone. I'm blaming the time change. It's kind of kicking my butt all the way into Mustafar, but getting there, getting better. We'll adjust. It'll be fine. Looking forward to tonight.
Feel that? Feel that. This week, we're going to get into all recent paper can celebration, and yes, even some screen can news, and even a bit of legends as well. Because we are going to do some news and in-depth commentary. But before that, let's get the plugs out of the way. You can follow us at the Ion Can Pod, or you can follow Matthew at the Tractor Beam, where he will be doing adventure hyperspace stories.
I'll jump in for that one just to clarify. So yeah, you can follow us at Ion Cannon Pod. All good. Yeah, at Ion Cannon Pod, Twitter and Instagram. Tractor Beam this past week Friday was Avengers Hyperspace Stories number 4, High Republic number 6, Santa Star Wars number 2, and Bounty Hunters number 32. It was another bevy. I didn't get to the week before, but I did do this past week. I just didn't get to posting on social media. Sorry about that. I'm also going to blame the time change for that for no good reason, because the time change was Sunday. But yeah, my weekly Tractor Beam comic book reviews, comics come out Wednesday. I definitely do get to reviewing them Friday. Check those out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Yes, blame the time change for everything. I mean, that's what I'm doing for the next few weeks. So yeah, and of course, if you can become a YouTube member and give us some super chats if you want, because then we'll read your comments if you do. And of course, join the Star Wars Underworld Discord server, where we have game nights and movie nights, but not this week. Maybe next week we'll have something. We're still working out the details. But
all good.
Now that we've settled that, let's get our eyes on that screen. Yes, we're back with another double whammy of Mandalorian and The Bad Batch. Let's begin with the one I watched first, The Mandalorian. That's how we decide these things on the podcast.
That's how that works. Okay.
That's how it works.
That's how the Tractor Beam works too. It's what I read. Anyway, keep
on. Anyway, yeah. Mind the Mandalore. Boy, I did a full in-depth review already with my buddy Doc Holocron on his YouTube channel if you want to check that out. But I'll just give my brief summary. Wow, we're moving past this story plot of Din trying to redeem himself rather quickly. We got to Mandalore rather quickly, and boy, it was a really good Bo-Katan episode as well. This was the episode that I felt like, oh, maybe she will become the leader of Mandalore. Everyone's kind of always thinking it's going to be Din because he's the main character, but like this particular episode, it's like, I don't know, maybe there's going to be some meeting at the middle where Bo-Katan's going to finally start maybe appreciating the ways of the Creed and whatnot, especially after looking into the eye of a mythosaur, and Din's going to get a little more skeptical because, the whole helmet rule and whatnot. But really good episode, really good, strong second episode. Cool to see Mandalore in all its crystallized, destructive glory. But yeah, I'll turn to you, man. Oh, and of course, the weird monster Dalek thing. That was creepy and cool.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Dalek, I totally heard Shelob. That was my thought.
Probably, but I thought Dalek had the eye and the cyborg thing. But over to you, Matthew. What did you think?
Yeah, it was like Shelob. Star Wars at its most Lord of the Rings I've heard in a very long time. Yeah, exactly. In terms of the convergence, the way I've described it is, Din is going to continue his quest to grow beyond his blind faith, but his example of faith that we see in this episode especially is going to encourage Bo-Katan to move beyond her blind anti-faith, her kind of the NYE, whatever, the lethargic, just not the lack of any kind of hope or meaning, and even the sarcasm, which there's room for sarcasm when it comes to faith and belief, but there's, you see the look in her eyes. There's a lot more going on with her in just seeing how committed he was to stepping into that water. Gonna bring this back. Gonna get this back here. Again, another episode in which we have this theme of baptism, and at first I watched this and I thought, okay, Bo-Katan, she is Din's Baptist, the person who goes and brings him out. But really, I'm wondering, and the CEO at my office, he came by, and management came by my cubicle, and I started talking about this, and wondered if the mythosaur is the one that sucks Din down. And what's fascinating is the way the mythosaur isn't aggressive, isn't I mean, it's mythosaur is a tamed creature, I guess, by Mandalore the first ended up, probably encouraging that a little bit, but doesn't attack them, doesn't uh, show any kind of aggression. But I mean, I'm wondering if, this makes me think again, Nnedi Okorafor's short story, and from a certain point of view, A New Hope. We're getting to that. Don't worry. Um, has the Dianoga pulling Luke under the water as a way of initiating him into the ways of the Force. Is this the mythosaur pulling Din under the water as a way of initiating him into his part of the journey of larger leadership and responsibility and the legacy of Mandalore as well? So lots to chew on, lots of possibilities, lots of speculation in terms of who's going to end up being the ruler, the leader, if there is anyone at all. But again, really, really nice to see this theme of initiation through the death and rebirth of water.
I actually don't think the mythosaur did tug him in. I think Din just fell down. I
That's
just think he didn't know how deep the water was and just like, whoops.
But it was a really quick. I don't know. Does water work that way?
I mean, he's got armor on. He's
True.
got
He has
hefty
a
armor,
bit
so I could totally see Din like not being able to swim.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like
Yeah.
It's not the brightest bulb in the bunch.
That's fair. That's fair. You never know. I mean, and of course, Bo goes in and rushes it and picks on him. So she's been through the water too now. I mean, who knows if she ever went for a swim when she was a kid?
I actually can have a bit of an odd take on why there's a mythosaur there in the first place, and it's actually based on like some science fictiony stuff of like the mythosaurs have been living in like the core of the planet, but now the radiation has brought the mythosaur out of the depths of the core and more closer to the surface.
Maybe
the Empire was just bombing the heck out of the planet. That's kind of my theory, at least. But yeah, really good episode. Curious what's to come next. All right. That's Mandalorian. Now let's move on to the Bad Batch, the Outpost. 2 really strong episodes this season. My gosh. And you know it's good when it's a Crosshair episode. Again, I did another review with Doc. We talked about it. Crosshair's like finally realized the Empire sucks. Although he's also now captured by the Empire and is looking like he's about to go through some very painful experiments. I'm very curious to see where Crosshair goes. Will he survive by the end? Will the Bad Batch rescue him and finally bring him home? Will he die a heroic death as a weird, maybe Death Trooper prototype? Who knows? I hope if he does survive, though, at least that means he can get a whole other season to atone. I think I'm confident now there's going to be a third season.
We'll see.
So, whether or not Crosshair is with the team again or not, by the end, things are cooking up there. And I would say, whoopsies. Yeah, sorry.
We're good. All good. All good.
I was reading some interesting quotes from George, not from our Tumblr friend from last week, a different place. And I found this. He was talking about Anakin Skywalker, but I feel like this could apply for Crosshair right now at the very moment. So a George quote, but not in George's accent, sadly. Okay, George quote. Anakin can't be redeemed for all he just talked about. I think this is after Revenge of the Sith. Anakin can't be redeemed for all the pain and suffering he caused. He doesn't right the wrongs, but he stops the horror. The end of the saga was simply Anakin saying, I care about this person regardless of what it means to me. I will throw away everything that I have, everything I've grown to love, primarily the Emperor, and throw away my life to save this person. And I'm doing it because he has faith in me. He loves me despite all the horrible things I've done. I've broken his mother's heart, and he still cares about me. And I can't let that die. Anakin is a very different person in the end. I saw a little bit about this in terms of like whether or not Crosshair's getting the redemption arc or not, and someone tossed this quote around, and I thought it was a really interesting quote. But Matthew, I'll start to you. Thoughts on the quote and thoughts on the episode?
I mean, another great episode that doesn't involve the Bad Batch. That's fine. I mean, I know there's going to be some sort of convergence. I can speculate now, especially with Crosshair being there. There's going to be something involving Mount Tantus and the Bad Batch going to Mount Tantus, or something. We don't quite know, but clearly they have to end up in some sort of contact there. Of course, everyone who's looking for them and researching them and spying on trying to capture them is on Mount Tentus now, and is in Mount Tentus, I should say. And so, yeah, that was
Mm-hmm.
it was a good kind of signal for what goes forward. Yeah, two, again, like you said, two great episodes on one Wednesday. Great, and a bunch of comics. What do I do? Yeah, and both Cody and Crosshair, I didn't fully expect to see them having such a quick turn, but if the Empire is just that evil, and if the inhibitor chips, I mean, for Crosshair, it doesn't count. It doesn't affect them at all. Yeah, I guess it makes sense that even he knows the Republic and the way the Republic officers took care of the clones and took care of their future, took care of what would happen. If a clone had risked his life for the future of the Empire, he'd expect, yeah, that he'd be taken care of. But instead, it's the typical Imperial thing, and that is the thing, is he comes up against what the Empire actually is, what the Republic has become. We talked about last week what the Republic has become over the few centuries, for the few decades, but really also overnight. This just incredibly uncaring meritocracy, harsh meritocracy, but also not really.
It's not meritocracy. It's more like oligarchy.
Well, yeah, an oligarchy, plutocracy, but sorry, I should clarify. That's a good point. Oligarchy, plutocracy, using the language of meritocracy, as in completely strictly utilitarian, except that it's really just sycophants trying to play the game. Anyway,
Yeah, not real
it's good to
meritocracy.
see. Yeah, so it was surprising, but also fitting then to see Crosshair make that kind of turn.
Mm-hmm. Thoughts on the quote though? I'm just curious on George's quote about
Yeah,
Anakin.
I mean, just in Star Wars in general, we have this question with Anakin, with Kylo Ren, and now, yeah, with Crosshair and some other characters, probably possibly with Thrawn, probably not. Uh, about atoning and about being redeemed, and being the redeemer in Anakin's case. Yeah, or in this case with Luke and whatever circumstances the Crosshair encounters now. Yeah, I mean, can one good? It's the age-old question: can one good choice right the wrongs? And George is here is saying that's just the wrong question. It's what's the need in the present, what's happening going forward. Yeah, that's with the Bad Batch, with Crosshair, with all these characters in the dark times. That's really the best you got in the moment. Is all of our structures, all the things we knew, have been taken away. That's what Crosshair again encounters with this Imperial officer. It's been taken away. What do we do in the moment now? What do we do? And okay, Crosshair is now refusing to support this regime. That he's refusing to simply be a good soldier who follows orders, because the orders aren't legitimate.
That's why I kind of hope Crosshair gets rescued and brought into the Bad Batch's orbit by the end of the season. Because especially if I do think we're gonna get season 3, it'd be so cool. Just like, okay, Crosshair left the Empire, not really for like a selfless reason. He just like, well, I'm not gonna live out. These guys aren't gonna treat me right. But I think it'd be cool if like his arc in season 3 then could be, kind of coming more to the Bad Batch's point of view of like where they're kind of going through right now is like, yeah, we're gonna to quote Dominic, quote Luthen, risk it all for something real. Like the Bad Batch can almost teach Crosshair, like, you defected, you left the Empire, but now it's like, well, now what are you gonna do with yourself? You're gonna continue being kind of an isolated jerk, or are you gonna risk it all for something real? Are you gonna take that selfish sacrifice and turn it into a selfless one, which, in a weird way, is Vader's sacrifice in a weird way is kind of both selfish and selfless at the same time. Vader's not dying to Luke going, space fascism, not a good idea. Democracy, pretty cool. He's just going, you were right about me. Like there was a little bit of love left in Vader, but Vader's not like, well, actually, I now believe in the Republican system of government.
Well, yeah. I mean, in that moment, he's not really thinking in those terms, but
right. I mean, I don't think Crosshair and the Bad Batch think in those terms either, but I think in terms of like Crosshair, like, seeing the regs and seeing the family, the troop, the clones as his family,
Mhm.
as the batch sees the clones as their family, as
Yeah.
Omega sees the clones as her family. To now make season 3 about we gotta do something we gotta stand up for our family, our
Mhm.
2 billion armed strong brothers and sisters, and
Mhm.
maybe some non-binary clones out there if there are any. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I will say, while we talk about this, I had the thought: what if Crosshair, in a way, becomes a replacement for Echo? Not so much, not at all in terms of the function on the squad, or even this of the characters themselves, but as this other member coming in from the outside, a little different, a little weird, having maybe trying to fit in, maybe more zeal like Echo to join the rebellion in this case, because the zeal of the convert in this case, and because he is so strict and focused and bent on his sense of what is right and wrong. And Echo had not in a rigid way, but he had a clear commitment and conviction, and he left the Bad Batch to join Rex again for that. So let me and an opportunity for Omega to show him more compassion, as she already has. Right, that wonderful line, "He's my brother." Uh, you know,
He's my brother.
she can another way for her to continue to be the heart and soul of this show, the main character of the show, and the core of the show.
Yeah. Also, I hate to make this too much bad back conversation, but I got to bring it up because I've been seeing a lot of it.
Yeah, no problem, my bad.
I saw a really cool theory that
Mhm.
what makes Omega special is not that she's force sensitive, that she's actually mixed DNA of a
Mm.
Django clone.
And
She
someone
is.
else.
Yeah, they think it's the female scientist, the lady who kind of sounds like Omega, but it's not played by Michelle Ang. Just another
Oh yeah. Interesting.
just like, and
That's
that's
interesting.
going to lead also to Mandalorian, where they're going to mix clone DNA with
Mhm.
Grogu,
Yeah.
and then eventually that's how we get Snoke. So
Is she
it's
even a
some.
clone at all? Is there?
No, she's a clone.
Yeah.
She's a Django clone,
Okay.
but inserted with like it'd be like it's almost like a pregnancy, like a real life pregnancy. It's like okay, like a Django
Yeah.
clone is a full on clone.
Sure.
Omega is pretty much kind of child, I guess, like an actual child. Is like
Yeah.
okay, let's
That's
take
what I was wondering.
mom,
Is
dad, mix it together, and poof, Omega.
it's called in vitro or surrogacy, or
I guess. Although I
wondering
guess
about that.
if Snoke is like half Palpatine, half Luke's hand, half Grogu, it's not
Sure.
truly in vitro
Those
because.
are a third.
But it's like
Yeah.
you're just mixing DNA together. It's like the Jurassic Park, like they put the frog DNA with the T Rex, and then that's how a T Rex comes out, and that's why it doesn't look like it should. But
I
that's
can
sort
see
of
the show going there. I can see
yeah.
the show
That's
doing for the weird science, weird cloning stuff. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
anyway. But about one more serious point on Crosshair before we wrap this
Yeah.
up.
Mhm.
It would be cool because if you think about it, this entire show, the Bad Batch, has never been truly fully together, right? Like the only time we've seen the Bad Batch together was in the Clone Wars spinoff, where we saw here's the Bad Batch, and then Echo joins, and then season 1 Crosshair leaves,
Mhm.
season 2 Echo leaves, so we're kind of
True.
down to just Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, and then Omega. So
And Omega, she showed up beginning of season 1 of Bad Batch, right? She wasn't in the
yeah.
Clone Wars arc, so
So we've
yeah.
never had the Bad Batch as the full unit throughout this whole series. One's always been missing, and one's defected to the Empire. So
Mm-hmm.
even if Echo doesn't rejoin, but Crosshair does, and that's the full on original Bad Batch back together again. The team's back. So I kind of would like it just to see the whole team finally back together after 2 seasons of kind of not having a full set of Bad Batch. But yeah,
A whole batch of bad.
I know. But, well, good, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
I would say it would bring this good sense of narrative conclusion to it,
right,
and flow to it. So
exactly. But yes, that has been our Eye on Screen 2 banger episodes, and I'm excited for next week for sure.
Yes. 2 days from now. Yeah.
So yeah.
So you're excited for Ted Lasso too? That coming out on Wednesday. No, I'm just kidding.
That's But yeah, let's move on to the news, and I think
Sounds
Matthew,
good.
do I toss it to you?
I don't know, some weird
Uh,
music. I don't know. I'm done singing on air. Yes, we got a bunch of news. We're gonna dive into this. Um, Kind of taking a page from the flagship podcast, to which when they're not spending the whole episode reviewing an episode. Um, Going through the news, kind of the way Dom does. What I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna go through each each item, sort of each chunk of items, and then we'll chat about them all together. The first one, which I mentioned briefly last week, is this Dawn of sorry, you should get this right. Dawn of Rebellion, the visual guide. And yeah, and this week we got a this is on was on This Week in Star Wars, I believe. We got a cover not final. This is from that I got this from the German site. I forgot the name of that site, but yeah. Yeah, so it's good that we delayed talking about it because we get on This Week in Star Wars. Yeah, it's from DK. It's written by, of course, our favorite Pablo Hidalgo, Winnipeg, Manitoba's Pablo Hidalgo, and Emily Shkukani, who's a junior creative executive at Lucasfilm Limited. And you can guys on this. This is not final cover, but looking pretty good. Looking kind of like other visual guide books. I'll read the full description here, and it's gonna be a bit, but I'll read it anyway. The latest in DK Star Wars Visual Dictionary Visual Guide series, featuring the all-new Disney Plus Obi-Wan Kenobi and Andor content, going behind the lines of the first rebels in their fight against the Empire. Take a deep dive into the turbulent era of the Star Wars galaxy, connecting the prequel and original trilogies and Rogue One, a Star Wars story. For many years, the state of the galaxy between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope was a mystery to Star Wars fans. With the release of Star Wars Rebels and Rogue One, and more recently Obi-Wan Kenobi and Andor, an exciting new era has begun to emerge, the dawn of rebellion. Before Luke Skywalker ever picked up a lightsaber, the rebels were scattered and desperate bands of idealists, fighting their own battles against the might of the Empire. Victories were few, losses high, and danger ever present. This visual guide charts this darkest of times, revealing all key characters, locations, vehicles, and weapons from the hit Disney Plus series Obi-Wan Kenobi and Andor, with exclusive new cross-section artwork. This releases November 7th, 2023, as I said. Pablo Hidalgo and Emily Shkukani with the words. And kind of what I mentioned last week a little bit. There's no films to make visual guides for. This has Rogue One and A New Hope to point to. It has Rebels to point to, and Andor. Well, sorry, it has, but but this is a switch, not even to series. Yes, it's sort of like the Andor and Kenobi visual guide, but
does it say
it's
it's doing
marketing it
Rebels in
as.
there?
I
Rebels?
mean, it has the events of Rebels, whatever. It's pointing to it a little bit. But my point being, it's not about a series. This is about an era or a segment of Star Wars history. Yes, it's being marketed with Kenobi and Andor, but the title is Dawn of Rebellion, and it reminds me a little closer to the High Republic art of guidebooks, also by Kristen Baver, and the Wookiees book we talked about a few weeks ago. Well, actually, here's the question. Yeah, I wondered about this. Will it include Rebels? That did have its visual guide on its own, or again, is this a fancy way of calling it the Kenobi and Andor visual guide? Marketing versus content versus what's popular in people's imagination is Kenobi and Andor because it's on Disney Plus. Um, Here, read more about that. But is it going to treat those things as tent poles, or is it going to treat them as uh, just parts along the way of a larger story? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But Joel, what do you think of this whole book, this whole news announcement?
Yeah, I kind of take it as sort of they're just marketing Kenobi and Andor by saying Dawn of Rebellion, because those are the two big Disney Plus shows that kind of take place around similar
Mm-hmm.
eras, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And it will probably be more in the classic style of a visual dictionary for a movie.
Yeah.
It's like here's Luthen and here's his cane and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but no, I'm excited. It's good to see they're trying to do something for the
Mm-hmm.
shows at least. With giving a visual dictionary, like I would kill for a Mando visual dictionary.
Yeah.
We have no idea what Werner Herzog's name is. It's just the client still. Um, what's his story, man? Like I want to know what that weird Sheila Dalek looking creature was. You can't just
Mhm.
put it there and not explain it. Like, I gotta know what it is.
I got to now.
I gotta know, like, because it's so weird. You're taking Din's
Mhm.
blood, and like, what was
Yeah,
that thing? Like, I gotta know.
yeah.
So, but yeah, this is cool. I'm gonna buy it. I love a good visual dictionary, and
Nice.
I love seeing one for Kenobi and Andor. I'm a little surprised they're not gonna wait until Andor's done. It's only two
True.
seasons. You don't have to wait that long. Um,
No, who
kind
knows when that's going to be?
No,
Yeah,
I think my guess is 2024. It seems like
yeah.
they're filming right now. Um,
Okay,
but
fair enough.
uh, but uh, you know, uh, yeah, I'm excited. I love these visual dictionaries.
Yeah.
It's cool to see this getting a little era. So yeah, I'm hyped for this.
Like what specifically? If there's one thing you want to learn more about, what specifically would you like to learn about in this visual dictionary that you think they're actually going to go into?
Luthen. I'm looking
Yes.
for the Luthen page because
Yeah.
he's so mysterious and cool, and it's like
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious what they'll reveal to us about him in the book.
Mhm. On a similar token, I'm going to go straight for the Mon Mothma page
Ooh, that's
because
gonna
I
be
mean there
good.
are other Mon Mothma pages, right? I'm guessing, and maybe not in the Rogue One visual dictionary. Has got to be
Yeah,
one,
there
but
is.
yeah, but just yeah, about the Senate and everything, and the overall history, the broad scope history of of this era of any era. Again, speaking broad scope history, we are getting to more of that later. Yeah, looking for that. Hey, got any last thoughts on Dawn of Rebellion, the visual guide? So
Nope. I'm
have
just
the
I'm curious how much it will go into stuff because I love these
Mhm.
things and they're so cool.
True. How
So
much detail?
yep.
How much detail? How much we'll get retcon later by Andor season 2? Who knows? It's probably being written with some of those tidbits in mind. That's another thing.
I
We
mean,
can't spoil anything, but they like Pablo has an in.
I
Amish
would assume
Shikari,
the
they have an
script
in.
would be done. So like the scripts are mostly
Yeah.
completed, so they probably know. Okay, this is what's going to happen. This is what's
Mhm.
not. So
True.
probably more kind of like okay, you know, kind of where your signposts are. Build off
Yeah,
of that.
that's true. Of course, this releases November 2023. So uh, there's probably some things that they can't talk about. I'm pretty sure of that. Okay, speaking of people talking about stuff and celebrating stuff, and may or may not be celebrating stuff on the internet. Talking about CouchCon 2023. Oh yeah, and Star Wars Celebration Europe happening in London, April 7th to 10th of this year of 2023. It's what time? Yeah, it's got to be what? Yeah, less than a month away. Wow, it's
We're March
3.5 weeks away.
13th.
That's
Yeah.
wild. The big questions we have: which panels will be streamed? Days in the past, years in the past. In 2015, I've mentioned this before. 2015, the birth of my current Star Wars fandom, Celebration Anaheim 2015, where they streamed everything. Chicago, where they streamed the Rise of Skywalker panel, all that. So
2015.
there's some questions in 2019 when
Okay.
yeah, I'm jumping back in, I'm jumping through the timeline here. But yeah, so it's been confusing because there was the report with the like the whatever the Reed Pop person who didn't who what would that person know, but then also on This Week in Star Wars, Kristen Baver also quickly mentioned that panels will be included in the Star Wars Live presented by Jedi Survivor. Panels will be included in the Star Wars Live. So maybe they've heard the feedback, heard what we were hoping for. Also, the fact that we're so many of us can't actually go for different reasons. I'm a little busy that weekend. It's on the other side of not just the continent; it's an ocean away. Of course, I am the same distance to London as I am to Anaheim, but it just seems so far away. One thing I'm wondering is, are they trying to hedge our expectations to say, okay, they're just hinting their panels, but might not stream the big panels, or I'd only stream highlights or something, uh, just so we don't get too disappointed, or saying get disappointed now, so you're used to it by then. Who knows? Those are the kind of higher HR, not High Republic, not human resource, PR, public relations strategies. So there's that. I gotta keep going all the way through, and then yeah, and then I'll bring something up at the end of this. There will be panels and announcements at Star Wars Celebration Europe, of course. There's going to be a the usual panels, but they've announced the High Republic panel. They're going to talk about the end of Phase 2. This is from This Week in Star Wars. Kristen, getting into this. End of Phase 2, the beginning of Phase 3, or is this? This could have been in the High Republic show reveals that Christina Ariel got into. I'll talk more about that. Keep on previewing things later in the show. Stay tuned. Keep going. Keep watching us. Yeah. So, talk about the end of Phase 2 and with some Phase 3 reveals. And but also say that Phase 2. What I've noticed is Phase 2, Wave 2 is sort of timed, I think, to coincide with Celebration. Not exactly, but it's pretty close. It's pretty darn close there. Definitely got to be a Marvel. I mean, I think Charles Soule mentioned there's going to be a Marvel panel, and I got to talk about the Ajax Sigma crossover event. And then, of course, for the podcast area here, there's going to be an Ahsoka panel, all to herself, a Bad Batch panel. Is it going to do a kind of a Rebel season 4 thing to say, okay, next season will be the last season, or what? Who knows? And yes, the thing everyone's talking about, the possible Lindelof film announcement. I mean, wait a minute. I don't know if, I guess Star Wars makes films now. I thought they mainly did books. Okay, that joke's not going to work. I'm not going to go with that one. But what I will do, Joel, is like, and I was going to make a fun joke about Star Wars not making films anymore, but not going to go there. What I will do, Joel, is ask you to get into this specifically, this question about the film announcements and cancellations, and I know you've tweeted a bunch. What do you make of, first of all, of the cancellations, and then the possible Lindelof announcement, possibly during the sequel era, maybe, and then what else are you looking forward to at Celebration generally?
Yeah.
Or coming out of Celebration, I should say.
Yeah. I'm excited for Celebration overall. I hope they actually do stream the big panels. That'd be nice. Yeah. In terms of like the film stuff, honestly, Dominic from Underworld kind of went into this last week. Was it last week or was it this week? Maybe last week.
Probably.
Where it's kind of like kind of a big, that's kind of that new, kind of a big nothing burger. It's like we kind of already knew half the stuff. Like, okay, we've known for a while that on the official Disney slate that Disney has to make, because they have to make deals with theaters at least 2 years in advance. That they have slated a Star Wars film for 2023, a Star Wars film for 2025, and a Star Wars film for 2027. Rogue Squadron. See, I'm only going to do that. Rogue Squadron.
That's why they canceled it.
That confused my brain. Rogue Squadron for 2023, that fell through. And they've never said what 2025 or 2027 ever was. So, you know, it could have been Taika, which was, we knew he was doing something. And then apparently this Lindelof film, which has been the big rumor for a couple of months, like almost since December, and has just been growing and growing and growing in perpetuity. Seems to probably be the most developed and ready to go. So that's going to be the 2025 slot. I mean, I guess the only thing is the Kevin Feige thing, which was never really officially announced. It was just kind of, Alan Horn mentioned it once, and then the writer of Loki said he was doing something, and you know, that's kind of it. So I kind of think a lot of it's just kind of a big nothing burger, and fans kind of overreacted like usual. And you know what? We got less than a month to go before Celebration. So as I always say, cool your jets and just wait. Just wait for things. Yeah. What was I gonna say? But in terms of news, you know, I'm curious about the Ahsoka panel in terms of if they announce any casting. I'm gonna say who's part of the cast. I'm crossing my fingers they have a big Thrawn reveal moment. Because that's going to be epic for me. I'm excited for Phase 3 of the High Republic, just to see how. I'm gonna guess it's probably gonna be our biggest phase, because it's probably the last one. Probably the last big phase, so it's probably gonna have the most stories. That's my guess. Kind of curious where the sort of direction they take Phase 3. I hope we get some news for Acolyte. Small I heard a rumor moment, but apparently Acolyte's gonna be a multi-season show, so Yay! So that means you're going to get more stuff in the High Republic on screen with Acolyte if that comes to pass. Um, and let's see what else. I'm curious to see if they announce any singular books.
Mm,
That's always
yeah.
exciting too. Kind of like, okay, we got the big initiative stuff, but like, what's the singular one and done books or like little mini trilogies? Are they going to do anything for this year? But yeah, I'm excited for Celebration, and I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be full of surprises. I think we're in
Mhm.
for a good celebration. Regardless, I just I feel it in the wind. I feel it in
You
the
feel
air.
the force. The
I'm gonna
force
make a Lord of the
is
Rings
moving
joke.
you.
Hearken
Okay.
to die. But being my
I
elfish.
completely missed that. That's okay.
What was is now lost.
Oh,
And
I
none
see.
shall see. But no, I'm excited overall, regardless of what
Yeah.
happens. As I always do, be I always
Mm,
temper myself anyway. But you keep your
mhm.
ears to the grapevine like I do. I think we're gonna be in for some fun. That's all
Yeah.
I say about that.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I mean, for those who are able to go, it's, I mean, just remembering from last year, it was just being there. Even
Mhm,
Joel, for you, just being there for a day was huge. You've talked about that plenty, and keep
mhm.
talking about that. Please do
Oh
keep
yeah,
talking about
no.
that. Just to be there and be around with people and see people from all over the world that yeah, you've gotten to know and connected with. Um, that point about the standalone novels, that was a great point. I didn't kind of
Mhm.
think of that because going back to last year, that the energy in the Del Rey panel um about Brotherhood, uh Shadow of the Sith and Princess and the Scoundrel. That was a
Okay.
great panel as well. And so those specific ones, and then the
And
future
probably
of
my
the
favorite
Gathering
books
Cage.
that year.
That's true. I mean, there's a really great summer of we had a really great summer of standalone novels last year. So who knows if they're gonna hopefully be able to live up to that, but um you never know. I mean, maybe this Ajax Sigma thing is gonna blow stuff out of the water. And yeah, I mean, it's also going to continue to show the world how beloved High Republic is, how it is, how I'm not alone in having my favorite thing in Star Wars, and for a lot of people, it's their favorite thing in Star Wars. And so, yeah, it's just those reveals and whatnot. Joel, you made I noticed a large gathering. You're looking forward to it being a large gathering. What do you mean by that?
Oh, I don't know if I made that point about large gathering. I just said it's going to be just a good. I think I was trying to
Okay,
say it's
fair
just going to
enough.
be a very plentiful
Hmm.
celebration. I just feel like there's going to be. I feel like we're.
I see.
I am in the mindset we're entering a new age of Star Wars. Of it's just
Hmm.
going to be ramping up, and if the Lindelof thing is true, then I think that is a safe signal that um, a
Yeah,
sleeping giant is about to be awakened again.
that'd
So,
be something. A
um,
sleeping mythosaur is what you
a
awaken.
sleeping mythosaur, yes. Very apt
Mythosaur of
today.
Star Wars returning to the big screen. Here's my joke. I mean, does Star Wars do films? I thought Revenge of the Sith was an original novel by Matthew Stover. So I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
I kinda
it'll
wonder if
be.
someone out there actually thinks that. I mean, you never know.
I wouldn't
I
blame
would
them. I wouldn't blame them.
I would love to meet
Someone
that
living
person.
under a rock. Someone who only reads books. I'm sure there's lots of people who only read books and just don't go to movies at all. Um, there we go. Yeah, I mean, as always with those, even with the Lindelof, which does seem to be the most solid, the Hannah Ray said rule. It's I will believe it when I've got my Rolo, my Rolo bars or Mars bars, pocket Mars bars, and my Coke, and it's 5 minutes to go, and no, even like the crawl or whatever is coming up. Then I'll believe it
If there's
because
a crawl.
if there's a crawl or whatever,
Mhm.
the opening thing, whatever that is, um, then I'll believe it. But until then, I'm fine with the shows and the novels and the comics and everything else. I agree. Yes, I mean with everybody. I've said this before. Of course, Star Wars on the big screen is something special, but the last time I truly loved Star Wars on the big screen was in 2017. It's not 2023, so I didn't. I mean, I loved Rise of Skywalker, but you know, Last Jedi was to me. I know you disagree, Joel. Was the last great thing to happen in my mind. So yeah,
I thought Rebels
there's
Season
been
War was
so
pretty great too, so that came after
yeah. I
Last
mean,
Jedi.
I also saw Kenobi on the big screen, but yeah, in terms of um films, Star Wars films, yeah, uh, there'd be
I
more
know, but it's like
hits. Yeah.
I feel like I think sadly, as much as big as the shows go and the books go, I still think films are like up here for like most people, and I think
Yeah,
that when the
that's true.
films come back and they're actually feel like they're going to be made, you'll start seeing a bigger hype factor. That's why I said Sleeping Giant, because I feel like
Yeah.
if you think like the Star Wars mania is kind of big now because of
Mhm.
Mandalorian, I feel like when the film comes back, I think we're going to see a difference.
True.
I think if you're a
Yeah.
YouTube creator, your hits are going to get a lot bigger. Um,
Let's hope. Let's hope.
let's hope.
Yeah,
Your
no.
Discord community is about to grow.
There we go.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. One more thing. I actually wanted to talk about this just a little bit about just
Okay.
the kind of the rumor mill about the film stuff. I know I don't
Sure.
want to get too much into it because I don't want to give our host. So kind of two big things I've always noticed about these film announcements, and I noticed this
Mhm.
first with the Game of Thrones guys that fell through, but now with the Lindelof thing, that is really interesting that the reports always claim Lindelof to oversee a series of films. And what I find interesting about that, and what I've heard, it's like, okay, he's going to make a solo film, not a solo film, an individual
A
standalone
standalone.
film.
Yeah.
And if it's successful, then we're going to make sequels. So kind of like the Pirates movies, or even like the original Star Wars, I guess, where it's like, oh, if it's successful, we'll make more.
Sure.
Don't have to splinter the mind's eye this. I found interesting about that is I
Yeah.
do think that is an indication of like they don't want to repeat of the sequel trilogy in that three different directors with probably three very different takes on the
Mhm.
characters and maybe even the ideas. Kind of like Lindelof's going to build off himself and maybe bring in other directors and maybe a co-writer here and there.
Yeah.
But he's kind of have one creative head. And the second thing I wanted to bring up is, and I think this is kind of be true of the Taika film. I think this was true of Rogue Squadron as well. I do kind of like the idea of everything kind of being post nine, because
Mhm.
I think, I mean, as much as I'm okay with it, I think most general audiences who are going to be the majority of people seeing this show do get confused about the constant leapfrogging the timeline. I think having more of a central kind of time
Mm.
space for all these films to kind of be together and possibly connect is kind of a smarter move moving
Mm.
forward. That's just me.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thought. I mean, there's also an appetite for going backwards in the past, but yeah, I mean, there's always something to do with focus. Which, on that point, I mean, kind of disappoints me with the report about if there are reports about being a series of films. There is a skill and there's an art to being able to tell a story in 2 hours. And the Oscars last night saw how some creatives did it brilliantly. And I mean, okay, James Cameron more than 2 hours, but whatever. um uh the fact, if it's a series, it's like, do we not finding people who have that skill? Is the story of Star Wars so fraught that you have to spend more time on getting these details? I mean, that's what I've talked about with novels, for example. There you have the time to actually explain things and lay things out, or you'll have people coming on YouTube being like, I don't like this, blah, 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 blah,
I
blah.
I
I
I
mean, I just
mhm.
wonder, I just hope Lindelof, that's one thing, I hope that it's possible, like I think Ryan Johnson, like Gareth Edwards slash Tony Gilroy were able to do. And J. James in Force Awakens was able to do. Uh,
Well,
give
it's
us
not an
enough
actual
to be satisfied.
series though. That's the thing. It's
Okay.
it's a
Yeah.
series, but it's like the sequel trilogy. I see trilogies as one story told over three films. That is
Yeah.
like the perpetuity of a trilogy, especially in its purest form. I
Hmm.
think this is more like the original trilogy, where A New Hope is very much a standalone story. You don't need a
Yes.
sequel. You don't need you don't need a prequel. You just have this one story, and then you make
Hmm.
more. I
Yeah.
think that is their plan of like,
Okay.
here's a singular story. Let's make a sequel. Let's make another singular story. We move the characters along, but it's still a story on its own, and then we make a third
Hmm.
one, and then maybe a fourth one. It's not well, I feel like the sequel trilogy themselves wanted to do this is all a singular story that's all going to connect. I feel like
Hmm.
this seems to be more like, just from what I've heard, more individual stories following this exact same these characters, and every movie kind of move them along,
Okay.
but they're still a singular adventure.
Yeah.
Did that
That's
make
what I'm hoping
sense?
for. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. It's more like, the word anthology there comes to mind. Um, Fair enough. Okay, we got to move on. But before we do,
Okay.
one last little announcement there. Friend Chris Abbott is good with me sharing this. Got the Fandom Fam. For those who will be at
Yay.
Celebration, do go to the fan stage 6 p.m. Saturday, April 8th for Bounty Hunters, Smugglers, and Gangsters. This common villainy through the years, and I'll read the official description. You're going to love it. Celebrate the Star Wars Underworld with us as we look at the unsavory characters that make up the galaxy. Whether it be Boba Fett, Dr. Aphra, Jabba, or Din Djarin, this panel will highlight characters from all mediums and eras of the timeline. This is why I'm announcing this, moderated by a certain Chris Abbott, creator of the Star Raptor YouTube channel, friend of the Iron Cannon pod, and also Star Wars Underworld tie-in materials correspondent. Panelists include Adam Christopher, author of Shadow of the Sith, Ethan Sachs, author of the Bounty Hunters comic, a fellow by the name of Dominic Jones, we're throwing his name around, Karen Duggan, who's been a contributor at the Star Wars Underworld Network, and Matt Booker, the co-owner of Fanning for the Tracks. Again, that is at the fan stage, 6 p.m. local time, Saturday, April 8th. I'm so happy for them. I'm so glad that they were able to get this together. Adam Christopher and Ethan Sachs on there, but Chris, Dom, Kieran, and Matt will all have some great things to say. So please do check that one out. If I were there, I would be there. That's for sure. All right, we got to move on to the thing we kind of advertise at the top. Before we got the Underworld folks to help us. I got Ben to help us out a little bit with plugging this. We finally got it. We finally got the from a certain point of view for Return of the Jedi, as expected, here on the 40th anniversary of that wonderful film that came out in 1983. I will show you the cover. Here we go. 40 years. It's 40 stories celebrating 40 years of Return of the Jedi. Read the description here. In honor of the 40th anniversary of the film's debut on May 25th, 1983, 40 storytellers explore the story of Return of the Jedi through the eyes of supporting characters, including heroes, villains, droids, aliens, and creatures. From a certain point of view, features contributions by best-selling authors, and not all of them. This is obviously not exhaustive, but this is pretty great. Olive E. Blake gives a chilling glimpse into the mind of Emperor Palpatine. Saladin Ahmed recounts the tragic history of the Rancor Keeper. Charlie Jane Anders explores the life and times of the Sarlacc. Fran Wild reveals Mon Mothma's secret mission to save the Rebel Alliance. Mary Kenny chronicles Wicket the Ewok's quest for one quiet day on the forest moon of Endor. And Anakin Skywalker becomes one with the Force in a gripping tale by Mike Chen. Plus more hilarious, heartbreaking, and astonishing tales from so many authors. I'm loving it, including, again, Kristen Baver, Emma Miyako Candon, Adam Christopher, Jason Fry, Sarah Kuhn, Phil Stozak, and Alyssa Wong. I just pulled a snippet from the whole list of characters of authors. If you can see this, it's too small for us to see, but lots of great characters there. And Anakin Skywalker became one with the Force in a gripping tale by Mike Chen. I do wonder if there was some conversation with Adam Christopher about what that was about, given that we've seen the Force Ghost of Anakin. Obviously, we saw it in Return of the Jedi, but we see him kind of this weird half ghost, half weird ghost, haunted ghost of Vader in Adam Christopher's Shadow of the Sith. Mary Kenny is doing Wicket. I know Kristen Baver loves Wicket, but we'll see. Yeah, what Kristen's doing. I'm curious also to know what it's like for her to go from doing the Star Wars show and being a nonfiction writer, a nonfiction journalist who wrote, of course, Family at War and other kind of fiction-esque books, fiction-esque stories, to do full-on original fiction story. I might ask her that one time. We'll see. But yeah, looking forward to all this. Of course, the A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back ones were page turners. They were really gripping, really wonderful ways of telling these familiar stories that are intimately familiar to us in new and fresh ways, and that's really the big strength of this in light of everything more recent canon as well. So yeah, really looking forward to that, along with Mon Mothma's secret mission, the Mon Mothma one in A New Hope. From a certain point of view, that was also fantastic. Why she had to get out of Dodge from Yavin before everything happened. That was exciting. The Rancor Keeper, I'm curious to see if that's also in kind of cahoots with Chuck Wendig, the Wendig trilogy, the interludes there, as well as everything going on with Cobb Vanth, the mayor of Marshal of Mospelgo. Um, but yeah, that's those are my thoughts, Joel. I gather you're going to go for this one as well. What are your thoughts? What are your feels about this one?
Oh yeah, I'm excited. A lot of interesting authors, very a lot of new ones. Sorry, my cat's being misbehaving.
All good.
Uh,
Cats don't misbehave, Joel. They just behave.
yes, yes, I know. Um, lots of new authors or returning ones like Jason Fry. Surprised none of the heavy hitters like Charles Soule or Claudia Gray this year.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess they want to give lots, and I learned a lot of them. It's like new debuts, so yeah, you love to see the new voices come to Star Wars. Um, I'm very interested to see how this story kind of comes off. In light of it, like these certain point of views are like retellings of A New Hope and the original
Hmm.
trilogy, but with the context of, oh yeah, now we actually know what the prequels were all about, so we can
True.
now kind of assimilate. So like, how do you assimilate Return of the Jedi now as now the midpoint of the Star Wars universe and not
Hmm.
the conclusion? Like will Palpatine be thinking of Exegol? Will there be a Snoke reference? What's going on there? I'm excited for that. I'm curious if like we'll get some Andor hints with the Mothma stuff, because
Hmm.
depending on when it was written, that would be interesting for sure. Uh, Probably gonna get an Admiral Akbar chapter. I just know we will.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Yeah.
know it's coming. It's gonna come.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jason Fry is the one who writes that one. Um,
Hmm.
that's just my guess. I'm curious what Adam Christopher will write. Like, what's his what will
Hmm.
his contribution be? I'm curious what characters that weren't in the movie will appear as well. Like, wasn't
Hmm.
Afra in one of these?
She was
Um,
in the A New Hope, and I was going to say Sarah Kuhn and Alyssa Wong have both written Afro stories. Of course, Alyssa Wong has written the definitive Afro story in my mind. But yeah, so definitely, you can. That's a safe bet.
so yeah, I'm curious. Like, will we get Din Djarin during Return of the Jedi? I mean, I doubt it, but will we get Gallius Rex or any of the other cats there? I mean, I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, Again, like you, I'm curious, like the Mike Chen one, like how are they going to do Anakin becoming a Force ghost?
Hmm.
Kind of explain how did Anakin get the Force ghostness without the trainings and the wantingness and the becoming of
Hmm.
oneness of it all. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I'm excited and can't wait for 2039 when we get the Phantom Menace from a certain point of view, 40th
Yeah.
anniversary. Will we
Yes.
all be alive? I don't know. Um, I hope they release those ones and sequel ones
Yes.
eventually. And I hope we don't have to wait too long.
Well, I was gonna say, here's the scary thing. Here's the shocking thing. Next year is 25 years of Phantom Menace. So, I mean, is that
25
wild? 'Cause,
stories for 20?
yeah,
Oh.
why not? I mean, please, and then give us another 15 in 2039, sure. But yeah, because that just goes to show just how successful these anthologies have been. It's kind of surprising they waited till March, till a month before Celebration, um to do it. I forgot to find when it's coming out. May 25th. Oh no, when yeah, when is this coming out? I don't remember. I'm gonna look that up right now. Okay. Anyone in the comments knows when this is coming out,
Good
please let me
question.
know. I don't know why I forgot to point that out, but you know,
Blanking. We're
uh,
blanking.
yeah. Anyway, we'll find that. We'll tweet that. Whatever. Here we go. Here at comicbook.com, comicbook.com. Uh, so yeah, but definitely really excited for this coming out. I don't see it. Oh, I see it. September 5th. There we go. September 5th, 2023. Not May 25th, but I guess that's too soon. Um,
Oh, well.
yeah. And here's yeah. I mean, you got the Wicket scene with the
It's
fireworks.
going
I'll
to be
show the
fun.
cover one more time there. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be great. See, any other authors stand out to me there? I mean, I think Phil Sostak, he's done mostly art of things because he's a visual one of the visual guys. So yeah,
Trisha
that'll be interesting.
Jackson apparently was a big deal, I think, for people. think she's an old film
Um,
monster.
interesting. Actually, right on. So, yeah, I mean, again, we knew this was coming. Glad it's coming. Looking forward to it coming again. Um, okay, gotta move on. We don't just like you said, we don't just have canon news. We got some Legends news very quickly. Get into Essential Legends Collection, wave number 7. Reddit user Elusive Man Jr. on the Star Wars League subreddit showed us this nice little diptych. Now, I had to crop it, but I did just to emphasize the diptych. This is Outbound Flight and Survivor's Quest, both by Mr. Timothy Zahn, coming out August 15th, and just showing how the covers are kind of meant to look in parallel with each other. Here's the Outbound Flight cover, of course, Mr. Thrawn, and Mr. Luke Skywalker with the Mara Jade there. So I believe that's Mara Jade.
Yeah, that's Mara Jade.
Yeah,
That's Mara.
on the Mara Jade on the cover there. So that's coming out August 15th. Also, since I'm behind the times, into the Dawn of the Jedi, Into the Void. This was announced a while back. I know, like in 2022. But Dawn of the Jedi, Into the Void by Tim LeBron, coming part of Wave 6 on May 23rd. So I'm gonna get this cover up. Oh no, that's not the cover. Did I not get the cover? Oh, I didn't get the cover up.
Oh
Sorry.
no!
Maybe we can do this. Maybe I can do this. Yeah. While I do that, what do you think, Joel, of all this this news covers?
Oh, that's cool. There's actually a couple other. There were 2 more Essential Legends collections as well that came with this. I just don't think we have it with us on the thing of.
Mhm.
There is a Republic Commando book coming out and an Old Republic book as well. So,
Yes.
yeah, these are
Yes.
part of the Essential Legends collection. So get them while you can. Oh
Yeah.
yes,
So
there we
this
go.
was
Oh,
announced a while back. I just love that art. That's so brilliant. I mean, everything to do with Tython, and I mean, I haven't actually read this one, but I've read the comic book, the Dawn of the Jedi comic book. That's so fascinating. Tython, and of course those double pyramid, more to see double pyramids. Love that. Love that symbolism. One thing I will say, whenever we hear this, I'm gonna repeat this whenever we hear news about the Legends collection. People say, "I wish we had these stories still," and my response is, "Look, here they are. Here is Outbound Flight for you to purchase, brand new if you want, unless you already have it." They keep coming, and that means Lucasfilm and and Del Rey, they continue to deem this worthy of time, of money, for marketing, distribution, to hire those incredible graphic designers for completely new covers to really put a fresh face on these stories that have been around for a few decades now, and but coming up on a few decades, some of them more than a few decades, and yeah, they're still here. They're still coming around, especially given how paper canon and screen canon aren't really in much of a conversation. There are some ways it's almost easier to say, okay, feel free to. I mean, it's always fine to say, feel free to enjoy these legend stories. I understand there's more room and more space in kind of the Star Wars ecosystem for these stories, and hence the beautiful new covers come up for them.
oh yeah. And some pretty good picks as well. I'm excited. Outbound Flight, classic. So
There we
that'd
go.
be fun. I don't even know if Outbound Flight was like available. I've never seen Outbound Flight for a while from my stores. That's getting
Yeah.
reprinted. I was really glad when the Rogue Squadron stuff got official unabridged audiobooks. So that was good. That's
Yes.
something I got to check out myself.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
with Mark
excited.
Buchanan, Legend Thompson doing the audiobooks.
Yeah, so that's exciting to check out. Yeah, I'm excited. I don't have much to say on
Yeah,
this.
you excited? You excited? I didn't. I noticed they've stopped doing the unabridged audiobooks. I guess Mark Thompson, he's a busy guy. He's got other things to do. That's the one thing that's kind of dropped off. But otherwise, yeah, these are here. They're fresh. They're ready to read. They're not going anywhere. And again, Lucasfilm, Del Rey, they're going to continue to invest in this side of it. Probably even selling them at Celebration. Say, here we go. I mean, they made what a beautiful box set of the Thrawn trilogy. So yeah, gonna be
I guess one more thing I'll say though,
yeah.
I'll be curious how deep cut they'll go. Like, are we ever gonna get the new Jedi Order reprinted? Because that's hard to find. Are we ever gonna get
Yeah.
the Young Jedi Knight books that were there? That those are almost impossible to
Mhm,
find. Can't find those anymore. Those were like mid-90s, and those are gone.
mhm.
So I'm kind of curious, like which ones for the Essential Legend collection are they gonna be doing?
Yeah.
Um, I hope they do those ones. Give people some of the more unique Legends books.
Yeah, there's the cat. There we go. I mean, it depends on how you define essential, right? And they have to make
Yeah.
this definition is called essential. So it seems like it's adult novels that are our pillars, are really tied in at the core of the Legends EU story, which was a not fully coherent, but a fairly coherent, organic whole that kind of held together. And there are the key ones, the key most beloved ones. It seems like they're the
Sure.
ones that they're releasing. Um, so there's that. Yeah, I was gonna say decades. Well, I mean, Plagueis is only what 9 years old, 10 years old. So there's a decade, but yeah, they've gone further back. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they'll do New Jedi Order necessarily because Plagueis is the exception, right? Plagueis is the one, the recent one that really people latched onto. People, I'm sure, loved New Jedi Order until they or whatever until they dropped the planet on Chewbacca. But
It was 19 books.
yeah, it was
Nine
19 books. That
a
might be a
lot.
little too bridge too far, but I could be wrong. I'll be happy to be wrong
Mhm.
if people love them and enjoy them. But yeah, go for it. Okay, let's get back to canon and let's go back in the timeline. The High Republic show. Christina Ariel came back, season 3, episode 1. It was Christina made a point of saying this is the first ever season 3, episode 1 of the High Republic show. The only time that'll happen. And yeah, she as she does gives some reviews or some reveals, I should say is the word. It's right on the screen there, Matthew. Some pretty cool reveals from the publishing initiative, and not just the publishing initiative, because we also see like the timelines book that's coming out on April 25th. Again by Kristen Baver, Jason Fry, Cole Horton, Amy Rakow, and Clayton Sandell. That, of course, is not just High Republic, but they made a point of saying that there is a good substantial High Republic section in this book. I'm going to show you, just one little page that they showed on the High Republic show.
They showed us 2 actually.
They showed 2. This is like they showed I guess 4. They showed a spread. I had to crop it. So they showed a timeline, literal timeline, which is also going to be helpful, suggesting Lena So is elected in 234. They pin it down. They say 231. They say 230 years, which phase 1 is set, and so they pin that down. So that's a neat reveal. But yeah, showing the origins of the Halcyon, of course, first shown in the Halcyon Legacy comic book. We got our boy. I'm gonna be able to point to him here. Our boy Joel. You want to point up that guy,
Oh,
Mark
I can point up.
Munro.
Yay! I can point up.
There we go. That
Works.
guy. Yeah, the eye, the Nile. There he is. And so it's good that I mean, we knew that they were going to, but I mean that's one of the things we hear, Joel. I mean, one of the things you mentioned is because kind of the overall story is a little iffy, hard to follow sometimes, and so this is going to lay out pretty clearly. Another book that's going to lay it out really clearly is Chronicles of the Jedi, also by Cole Horton. That is that in-universe history look at the history, not the High Republic Publishing Initiative, but the history of the Phase 1 era, kind of the 230 to 231, 230 BBY. That comes out in 9 days, guys. That's comes out March 21st, and we got some beautiful interior art here of Buryaga
Ooh,
with the Great
pretty.
Washer Tree. Of course, the Padawan there, and then Elzar Man. We actually got an image of Elzar Man. I think he's kind of in this forced meditation, and yeah, and that's gonna again really delve into and tell the story in a very clear and helpful way. I think similar sort of to Skywalker Family, or as we've mentioned, but in a shorter timeline. And so that'll be really nice. And I mean the visuals in this are just so stunning. Looking forward to that. Before I move on, of these 2 books, what What do you find maybe interesting? What are you looking forward to?
Probably the timeline one. 'Cause obviously going to cover
Or like
just not just the.
in the like the High Republic section of the timeline, maybe what are you looking forward to?
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm gonna say like I'm expecting for the timeline one in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess kind of I've been kind of saying for a while, it's like we're getting all these books and the High Republic
Mhm.
and these stories, but like if you think about it, everything's only taking place in the terms of like 2 years.
Yeah.
All of Phase One took place in like what 3 years,
Yeah. Two,
right?
3 years. Yeah.
And we have like these 100-year gaps in between Phase Two and Phase One, and I don't expect
Mhm.
there to be a big gap in between Phase One and Phase Three.
Right.
So it's like the High Republic era in terms of in-universe history is supposed to be almost 1,000 years, at least a couple hundred. So plenty of opportunities to still tell stories, even if they have nothing to do with the war against the Nile. Um, so I'm just kind of curious about all that for sure. Um, yeah, and I'm excited just for the timeline one in general because I always find
Yeah.
timeline books like this really interesting.
I do wonder if some of this is also to get people up to speed to phase three.
That will help.
Just I mean, we have that young adult anthology also coming out. Yeah, if people who haven't read phase one, they want to dive into phase three, I think that'll be the hardest one to do. Is phase two you can jump into, um, Path of Deceit you can jump right into without having any kind of background. It helps. It changes it for sure. Makes it better. But uh, I think phase three, you're right in the middle of the story, and you know you're gonna need some background, or just the folks who want refresher, right? So, um, both that's especially Chronicles of the Jedi, but also timelines to see timelines advertised in the High Republic show specifically, not in the This Week in Star Wars. I mean, I'm sure they've talked about it before, but to really point it out and really show us that page. So, um, yeah, so
Mhm.
yeah, and then here's a great comic here, comment here. Sorry. Yeah, love to chat about how yeah. So yeah, yeah, and definitely we're gonna definitely talk about it when it comes out. Gonna read it. Yeah, and then yeah, feel free to chime in the comments when it does, and chime in the comments now if you want. What are you most looking forward to in Chronicles of the Jedi and anything we've talked about so far? Let us know down below. A bit more tidbits in this High Republic show. Um, the Christina, she brought on James Waugh, who is the Lucasfilm Senior Vice President. Here's a mouthful. Senior Vice President of Franchise Content and Strategy. Say that 3 times fast. He said dropped this little interesting tidbit. He said that Phase 2 leading towards something called the Night of Sorrow. I mean, it's about as ominous as the Night of 1,000 Years, but of course, set a few hundred years before that. A completely different context. Phase 2 specifically leading towards that. I'm wondering, will that well, I should say what he said was that'll affect everything across all media, including a certain video game and maybe a Disney Plus series. We'll see.
Did he mention Acolyte?
He did. We're getting to that in a minute, but just across all the media, again, not just the novels and comics. So that's interesting. I do wonder, I mean, Night of Sorrow, that also something involving this video game, maybe that we're trying to bury. He mentioned that by name. We won't mention it by name, but it's something involving a planet obscuring a sun. But I thought that was a game that we're trying to bury, given all the nonsense that from that studio, and so. But he mentioned it by name, so maybe that still going forward. That was in reference to what might come up at Celebration, and so that's an interesting move to go for it when people are there in person. So yeah, on that High Republic panel, yeah, Night of Sorrow. That again, that is nice and really ominous. I'm wondering, phase two. It's still the before, right? And that's the weird thing is High Republic is the before image. You have to have conflict in order to have drama. The Path of the Open Hand is very much providing that. Maybe that is what I mean, my speculation here is that's what triggers maybe the people who experience that tragedy are the Path of the Open Hand themselves, or something that triggers them from this nice peaceable group of anti-force users sorry, who have these three waves on their forehead to turning that around and having the three lightning bolts as denial. I don't know, but really interesting tidbit there. So yeah, before we move on there, what of those reveals, what does that sound like to you? The Night of Sorrow, um, everything that was talked about there.
Yeah, interesting. He's saying it's going to affect all the media. I'm going to
Mhm.
be skeptical about that one. It's like, is Acolyte really going to be dealing with that? It's like, how far, I mean, that's the thing. I'm curious where Acolyte will fit into all of this.
Mhm.
Um, given, I mean, it's potentially a 2024 release as well.
Yeah,
I'm curious
we're
if
getting to
Higher
that in a minute, but
We'll get to that.
yeah,
Well, I'm just gonna. Yeah, I guess I can build up a little bit, but I just say, like
sure.
phase three is gonna be over.
Mhm.
By then I don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, depending on how late in the game Acolyte
Sure.
comes out. We'll get to that soon. And the High Republic has always been called a multimedia thing. So far, the only media that it's had is books and comics. To me, multimedia also includes
Yeah.
games and TV shows.
There was the
Um,
VR game that was like
that
one
was
little chapter in the Batu, but I mean, he mentioned it too, I think. So,
There's that. So yeah, we're getting
mm,
also it's not Tales of the Jedi, it's the other one. Young Jedi Adventures.
yes.
Um so are we going to see more of the the multimedia project outside of books and the comics?
Mhm.
Um yeah, I'll be curious how this Night of Sorrow uh plays out and
Mhm.
what that's all about. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of all I got to say on that.
It definitely gives us something to look forward to, look for, not look forward to. It's going to be such a great fun thing to read, but to look out for, and draw our minds to. Um, what is this about? What's happening? I mean, the Battle of Jedi was something for us to set our minds towards and look at. It's still having reverberations. I mean, the comic book, especially, still dealing with that battle, even though the audio play came out a few months ago. So, yeah, this Night of Sorrow is going to have these reverberations. I do wonder. I mean, one of the things about Night of Sorrow is, like you mentioned, the end of Phase One
Mhm.
came in a comic book, came this huge decision on the part of the Jedi to pull back, pull up all their tent pegs, and or whatever the metaphor is, and just all retreat to the Jedi Temple. All these, just leave all these temples and outposts scattered throughout the galaxy, out the outer rim. Let Markian just have his way out there because they're got to regroup and got to be able to sort out what on earth they're doing and who on earth they are, who on Coruscant they are. Um, you know, payback for the Night of Sorrow. It seems to be. I wonder if that's gonna reverberate into Phase Three, and I suspect it will, given the way the rhythm, like they mentioned, the kind of the rhythm of the original of Star Wars with the original trilogy and the prequels. Um, the episode we talked about last a few weeks ago, the reverberation of the prequels into the sequel trilogy, this reverberation of Phase Two into Phase Three. There's a reason they did it this way. There's a reason they told the story this way, because Phase Three is going to wrap up not just Phase One and all those loose ends, but bring together everything they've laid out in Phase Two. So again, that's why it's my favorite thing in Star Wars. Everything's just coming together. Yes, with wild gesticulating arms. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm here for it. So yeah, before we do move on, any last comments on this section of what he's talking about in the High Republic show?
No, I guess I'm just always thinking about, okay, the High Republic has been this successful thing.
Mhm.
I do think it has been successful. It's certainly, they pushed this harder than any book thing they've ever done.
Yeah,
Um,
for
so,
sure.
but it's gonna have a shelf. I mean, not a shelf life, that's not the right word. But it does seem like their idea is three phases and then we're done. Um,
Yeah.
I kind of wonder how I hope they don't just they're like, oh well, no more High Republic story, we're done. We told the
Mhm.
story. bada bing, bada boom. Like what comes after this culmination? Is there a phase four? Is there a new story? Is
Mhm.
Marchion Ro our Thanos, and then we'll get our Kang the Conqueror?
Yeah,
What's going on?
yeah,
What will happen after phase three? Which I assume, I could be wrong, but I assume it's sort of the last big phase. Because they love their
mhm,
trilogies. So what is next for the High Republic afterward? I know I'm thinking a little far ahead, but it is just something
yeah.
I think about because like I feel like we are nearing the end, but I doubt they want to give this label up so easily.
Mhm. First of all, I'm not ready for the end. I'm still, we are halfway through. Effectively, right? We're halfway through phase two, so I mean, I'm not ready to admit that, to face the end of it, but um, like you said, we have lots to go. But yeah, that is a great question. Seriously, putting the adult brain back on, that is a great question. What comes next? What do they do with this phrase, High Republic? They've done a good job, Kevin Scott and Charles Soule, especially using the label in universe during uh during the prequel era and the Empire era as this historical thing that happened in the past, including right now in the Charles Soule ongoing comic, right? Implications of the Nile that Luke, Leia, and Holdo and Lando and Chewie are facing, by the way. So um I suspect something like that, although yeah, I mean, why quit on a good thing? Why stop a good thing? I guess you could say quit while you're ahead, quit while you're on top. But um, yeah, given how especially the money works, milk it for all it's worth. But tell us a popular story. Tell us a story we want to know, because it's not like these characters, their stories are going to end. Again, what I also know is Kevin Scott has mapped out. I keep saying this, has mapped out Keith Trennis's whole story. Um, has mapped out what happens when Master Keith Trennis leaves the Order, why, what that's about, um, and at this point in the end of phase one, she's just been knighted, maybe a year in, so she's definitely not a master yet. So yeah, that could be something else. It could be some sort of standalone thing, not even using the High Republic label, but when Keith Trennis, a novel by Kevin Scott or something, or a long run comic book. I don't know if one character that isn't a legacy character can handle that, but yeah, that's that's a possibility. We'll see. And I think that's I think what you're getting at is whatever comes next is going to have some clear continuity in terms of characters, in terms of situations uh, to what happens with Phase Three, with the High Republic Publishing Initiative. Um, yeah, because it is a long era, historical era in the Star Wars galaxy.
And maybe, as I've suggested before, maybe they leave those gaps open to for other things that take a
Yeah,
lot longer to make, to fill in.
true.
It's easier to write a book; it doesn't take that long. But making a movie, making a game, making something bigger, that
Hmm.
takes a lot longer time, and a lot of things
Yeah,
can go wrong. So you kind of want to keep those gaps open in case you want
hmm,
to keep this era open for storytelling.
that's true.
But
I, w- I will say, just like Charles Soule has been involved, I think with Undiscovered Country and 8 Million Genies, involved in turning those comic books into scripts, into TV shows, and those are getting off the ground. Kevin Scott has also been involved in turning some of his stories into TV shows. Maybe this Keith Trennis original Star Wars show. I don't know. That would be something. That would be. I mean, I don't know. That would be kind of weird in that such a clearly paper character becomes a TV thing, but that's because that's not really something they've done. But you
I
know
mean,
what?
the
I
era
feel
is
high for them.
getting screen canonized.
That's true.
Uh,
That is true. We're oh so close to mentioning that, but yeah, it doesn't seem likely. I don't think Keith Trennis will be. I mean, I think yeah. I mean, Kevin Scott wrote one of the best novels in High Republic, one of the most popular, beloved novels, Rising Storm. He knows what he's doing. He's written Doctor Who novels. He's done, um, he's able to cross all these media. So, I'd be even maybe like a trilogy, a Keith Trennis trilogy. or something. I don't know, just speculating what makes the most sense there. But yeah, we do got to move on. We're inching. We're kind of blowing through it. Blowing through it. Yeah, James Waugh did mention the Acolyte in the Hieroglyphic show. He called it here. So here's the interesting line he uses: "Is the High Republic era come to life?" So yes, this is it. This is what we know. What is next? We know it's probably set 100 years later, but clearly similar maybe to the Jedi Survivor, but even more so. I think a lot of the designs, a lot of the visual language. I mean, that's, for example, what's so exciting about The Mandalorian is a lot of the visuals from animation are coming into live action. Jutting up on Uncanny Plateau, but Bo-Katan, I got there, the Purgle. That's going to be wonderful when we really see them. So similar kind of thing. I mean, we have all these beautiful, striking visuals. I'll show you one, from the High Republic, and uh, this one too. All this beautiful visual. And I don't specifically mean those specific characters, but there's a distinct identity, visual identity of the High Republic, and to see that come to life in live action. Just like, again, there was a distinct visual identity to Clone Wars and Rebels that we're seeing coming to live action. I do think the Acolyte is going to be the closest to that with Leslie Headland. That being said, we know that there are some issues. I'm gonna dive into that a little bit. So executive producer Karen McCarthy, she was on the she was the executive producer for 2 weeks. She's suing Lucasfilm for wrongful termination. It's a Variety article. I mean, this is just in the weeds, but whatever. She could have done an Apple TV show. This just exemplifies, I think, kind of the difficulties here. She could have done an Apple TV show. She did Star Wars instead, but she was only let go and it was too late to join the Apple show, so she couldn't do either. That's causing some rancor. She's suing Lucasfilm. I don't know who's morally on the right side of this or not. Sorry, but between that and say the labor issues on Skeleton Crew, there are questions. There are things every large organization struggles with. Um, you know, but it's kind of, I guess it's kind of healthy that we don't have this kind of perfect sheen to Lucasfilm the way I know Disney tries to have this perfect sheen. But speaking of Disney, it is on pace for 2024. So not sure you alerted me to this. According to Bob, Return of the CEO Iger, it is on pace for 2024 release. Let me find this quote by Scott Gustin. It will arrive on Disney Plus in 2024. Okay, so that's good. It's on schedule. It's about when we thought. We don't quite know. Maybe what month it's set to come out, but yeah, all that High Republic comes to life. Labor issues on pace 24. Go for it. What are your thoughts? What are your hopes? What are your dreams? What are your fears?
Yeah, so this the executive producer thing, I'm not gonna get into the weeds of that too much, but according to the article, one of the articles, it mentioned she signed up for multiple seasons and that she was going to move to London, because that's where it was filming, for the long term. So this is the show. So if that's true, this is act like it's gonna be a show that's it's not gonna be like a one and done. It's gonna go along at least I can at least imagine 2 seasons, maybe more. So it's got at least 2 seasons at least in the pipeline. So that's interesting. Because apparently she was giving the series Bible and how that's all the series is supposed to play out. So that's gonna be interesting. Acolyte more than one season. So
Yeah.
yay, High Republic in on screen for more than one season. That's gonna be cool. If it works out. Yeah, I am genuinely curious about seeing High Republic visualized on the screen. Like you said, with Mandalorian's a little different because we're seeing more characters than aesthetics. It's still mostly stormtroopers, TIE fighters, and all that, X-wings and all that good stuff. With some exceptions.
It's Ahsoka.
Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, possibly Thrawn, all that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you got original designs like Purgles and stuff like that. And planets like Mandalorian, from the Clone Wars. So you got that.
Yes.
but it's gonna be a whole era. So and even though it's later in the era, I'm very curious just the kind of vibe the show is gonna give. Because
Mhm.
like the High Republic, like I'm looking at the comics, which I don't read that much of, but like the comics are just so wacky. It's like you got like a firebender and a tree lady. But, it's like, or how grounded is the show gonna be in comparison? Because they got good CGI, but I don't know if it's still expensive to do a whole tree lady,
Yeah,
for multiple episodes. So or do a full on firebender. Um, there's possibilities, obviously, of like Jedi having gold robes and stuff like that. But
that'll
I'm
be
just kind of
easier to do.
oh yeah, totally easier. And maybe there'll be some aliens, depending on how
Mhm.
much budget they got. Um, but I'm curious just kind of the vibe and the tone the show's
Mhm.
gonna have, and if it's gonna, because I see the High Republic as very, weirdly, a very light-hearted tone, despite some dark moments. But I still see it as
Mhm.
very optimistic and still very, this is the good times. This is
Mhm.
the good times. But I'm curious if this show, given the title, and kind of have more of an undertone of darkness to it,
Yeah,
given what it's called, what it's about, what we think it might be about. And just, yeah, I'm very curious to see how that translates
yeah,
to the screen, or at least the streaming screen. Um,
yes,
but I'm excited that it's in Pinewood, because that's where Andor filmed, and I don't know,
true.
something about the Pinewood stuff. I mean, they both look good, but I feel like the Pinewood stuff always got a little extra. But yeah, I'm
Yeah,
excited.
if it has a quarter of the budget of Quantum Mania, then it might go nuts pretty far too. Yeah, and again, I mean, Leslie Headland. Again, I keep coming back to her and everything she says, everything she seems to be so tapped in to. Yeah, I mean, what's happening in the books, sure, but just what, yeah, like you said, the vibe, what this is about, what just thinking on that level and asking questions on that level of character, of mythos, of world building, what George was on about, what Dave Filoni's on about, but also, of course, I think what the Luminous authors are on about. And yeah, if there is any clearer continuity, it's going to be the vibe. It's going to be the sense that this is the before, in part because that's what George Lucas gave us in 1999. He gave us the end of this great sheen, this golden age of of the Republic, of this Jedi Republic. Of course, the story George tells us is of the decline and of the rot, the corruption in it. To some extent, I mean, Filoni, like we talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, he goes into more of the rot and the corruption. But yeah, that's still set up for 100 years back. That, of course, the same strain that the Luminous authors pulled on to tugged on to. Um, it it is on purpose that Kathleen Kennedy has always, well, I should say, when she first announced the series on that Disney Plus day, the Investors Day thing, whatever, she dropped the High Republic phrase, and this mentioned in by James Watt in the High Republic show as a High Republic era story. So yeah, I mean, that's why we're covering it like mad. But yeah, it's, again, we don't know. Your point from a few months ago, or whatever, we don't know if there's so much specific story beats that'll reverberate. Musing that will resonate into this show, but
Mhm.
yeah, the vibe showing. Yeah, on the one hand, yeah, like you said, the sheen, the golden age, the emerging underbelly, that
Mhm.
the emerging corruption of the Bane plan coming to fruition potentially, and um, looking forward to how it
Yeah.
navigates those two things, right?
Mhm.
Because I mean, the thing about High Republic that draws me, kind of was getting at, is I am in more in George's camp, if you will, of the Jedi ultimately being heroic. Not that Filoni would disagree with that, but ultimately being heroic and having the ideals that we should all be aspiring to, about compassion and courage and
Mhm.
helping people out and connecting with people where they're at.
Right.
But also, of course, uh, this whole High Republic thing is in part about where the Jedi started to lose sight of that in a profound way, in the fatal way that leads to Order 66. And so, yes, the show, I think, and I trust Leslie Headland, I trust everyone involved in it. the way the Luminous authors have navigated this tension between the Jedi as the Golden Age, and also the potential for them to really lose sight of it. Uh, just especially with the path of the open hand being such a compelling way into that now in phase 2 in the acolyte in this phase. Not, it's not a part of the phase, it's another thing. I wasn't going to say call it phase 3.5. It's not. It is a new story connected with what the High Republic is about, in that tension between the Sheen and the underbelly that again George himself went into.
Yeah. Also, and I was talking about vibes. Well, I also agree with what you said. I also kind of, although, maybe Mando and Ahsoka will kind of be the things that touch upon this more, is that for the most part, the shows tend to keep more to the grounded side of things, even when we have like things like Kenobi, like the space with. It's like,
True.
we don't have anything like the Drengir on screen. We don't have Plant Lady. We don't have Fire Lord person. Some of
Again, there
that's
was
just
on
because
Quantumania.
that's true. I mean, some of that is also
Yeah,
because those things are expensive, and even with a
yeah,
good TV budget, CGI characters are
true.
still very expensive.
Mhm.
Mando is definitely touched upon the weirder things with the monsters and things like that, and
Yeah.
I'm going to
Y-
just put a gander right here. Just I think Ahsoka is going to be quite fantastical and very fantasy looking, given
And
Filoni's
so is
writing, and
Willow to some extent.
yeah, Willow
Same
too.
studio,
So
same house, especially the last season or last
yeah,
episode.
yeah, I mean, if Willow can do it, I mean, I'll be kind of curious if like, does Leslie Headland kind of go the full high fantasy vibe that I feel like all High Republic gone for, or is she gonna
Mhm.
tap more into what I think the TV sides have gone for, with more of that grounded, while still maybe
Yeah,
fantastical in terms of the era, but certainly more in the
mhm.
grounded grunge of the kind of the TV shows I've kind of gone for.
Yeah.
Um, also, I had one more point, oh yeah, so and the show. I remember someone saying it's about a Jedi and his former Padawan,
Mhm.
um, investigating a crime and kind of looking for the deep underbelly. That's probably my guess is like something going to lead to whatever the Sith are going to be
Mhm.
involved. And I don't know why, but like, I have this like weird feeling that like the Padawan's actually a secret Sith and gonna betray their master at the end, and they're the like you think they
Maybe.
start off with a Jedi, but then like, oh no, they're actually a Sith, and that's why they're the acolyte. Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
That's just my vibe. I don't know why. That's what
Yeah. Well,
crime
because of the
thrillers.
name of the acolyte. I mean, the only time we hear that in Star Wars is Yoop to Shoot, the acolytes of the Beyond. I don't know if this is
Right.
all connected, but I think, I mean, for those of us who've read Aftermath and Shadow of the Sith,
This
yeah,
acolyte. So yeah,
yeah,
I'm
or
just
even
kind of
Nostalgia Ventress to some extent, right? Like, I don't know if that is that term ever used for her, but
I feel like we've
I don't
heard the
think
term
so. We
acolyte
need
on
we need to
screen a few
ask
times.
Ben if Ben knows.
Yeah, but I want. I feel like there's gonna be some of that as well, and I think, whether or not Leslie Headland is um reading the books or not, I think like Tony Gilroy, I think they are very open to working with Story Group and
Yes.
getting the vibes of what an era is. Like Tony Gilroy, just like I'm not gonna like. I felt like Tony. One
True.
thing that I appreciate about Tony Gilroy is like he was willing to do his homework about what's this era he's writing for. He wasn't just like,
Mhm.
he's gonna write it, whatever. It's like I'm doing a spy thriller thing. It's like, well, okay, he did the homework. He even like corrected someone about the Gorman massacre during an interview once,
Nice.
where he's like, oh, no, it's actually two BBY, two BBY. We still got some time before the Gorman massacre happened. So Tony Gilroy, well, actually, somebody.
Never
Um,
thought he would do it. Never pegged him for one of those. So
yeah, so like he actually corrected,
that's
like, no, Mom Mothma still got a few more years in the Senate before
I
she
could totally
defects.
see Leslie Headland doing it well, actually, though, and I really hope she does. I hope they do.
Oh yeah, so it's like I think they're working with the powers that be to kind of understand this era of storytelling, what they're doing, and again, I'm just very curious to see how you translate the High Republic on screen. And I am both. I'm not. I don't want to say I'm worried. I think that's an understatement. But I'm worried in like the fan expectation sense of they're
Mm,
expecting one thing in their head, but
yeah.
because this is on screen, and because obviously this is 100 years after the fact, it's not
Yeah.
gonna look as bright and pretty. It'll still look pretty. I mean, even Phantom Menace looked pretty in terms of like that's what the galaxy looked like at the time. But I don't think it's gonna be like I don't see the high fantasy elements like the Drengir showing up. I could be wrong, and that'd be cool
Never know.
if they have the budget for that. But I feel like what the
Mhm.
TV shows have gone so far, um, there's always been a little extra groundedness towards them. Although
Yeah.
again, Mando is sort of the exception, so maybe I'll be wrong.
I mean, I'd say Mando's kind of the rule, frankly.
Hmm.
So like you see Mando in Book of Boba Fett, even Kenobi is still on the grounded side, even though it's about a space wizard. It's about a space wizard
Yeah,
starting regaining his sense of faith and imagination of the galaxy. From what I've heard about Ahsoka, that'll be the first one to really go for it and push things and explore things.
yeah.
And that'll set the stage
Definitely.
then for the Acolyte to do the same potentially. The reason I bring up Quantumania is because again, it has a film budget, it had that massive budget. It really went there and really went for the mystical and the cosmic and the microscopic scale, but still
Mhm.
the weird and the out there. There's an appetite for it. There is the money for it. Come on, let's be real. The
Rather.
volume. I mean, the thing with Quantumania, the volume made it so well. It made it so manageable, making the most of that technology more than the Acolyte or Kenobi ever, or sorry, than Mandalorian or Kenobi really has. Mandalorian
Mhm.
to some extent, but Kenobi not really as much. Yeah, not to the same extent that Quantumania did. So it's there. The resources are there. The people are there,
I'll
and
Mhm.
I can see that.
I'll give one more counter, and that
Yeah,
is, what if that's just not the story Leslie Headland wants to tell? I mean, it sounds like she's
true.
making a crime thriller, and it's going to be more
That's
about the
true.
grunge.
That's
For what I heard about Russian Doll, there's like a very a mythical fantasy element to
Mhm.
like a crime drama. So
Yeah.
I can kind of see like there being like a good hybrid of both if she can do
Mhm.
it. But like I don't know if we're going to see. We could, but I don't know if she wants to tell a story about
Mhm.
someone riding space whale. She's writing sound like she's writing like someone trying to solve a murder mystery that just
Yeah,
involves
that's true.
evil cultist Sith lords, my guess. So
Mhm.
kind of maybe a bit of
Yep,
a horror vibe. So I don't know,
that's
but
true.
I'm excited either way. I'm
Yeah,
excited for the show.
let the space wheels in the Ahsoka show.
Mhm.
It's already that's been set up, but yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true. Whatever comes of it, I'm
Yeah,
excited. Looking forward to,
me
yeah,
too.
2023 in Paper Canon, in High Republic, in all the above. It's gonna be a fun ride. I mean, we know that there's. I mean, I finally did get Battle Scars. Um, that's underway. There's the one about
Yay.
the Inquisitors who fall in love. That novel that's coming out. So
I'm
there
hyped.
are some other things coming down the pipeline. Um, that's all we got. I mean, Joel, you have any final comments on anything we talked about? All the above.
Hyped for that Inquisitor book still.
Yes.
Because I think I hope this is our deep dive into the Inquisitorius.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. I think this is gonna be a good year for Star Wars.
Mhm.
I feel like new big things are on the horizon. Good things are coming.
Mhm.
Lots of exciting things to explore. New episodes of Mando, and Bad Batch.
Boba.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, maybe we'll see Boba. I don't know. The rest of the months, we got Ahsoka and
Mhm.
and maybe summer, possibly. Um,
Yeah.
a Skeleton Crew maybe this year. I hope. So exciting things all around,
Mhm. Yeah.
and yeah, and I hope they're all good. That's
Yep.
all we can
So
hope for.
yeah, and yeah, let us know, folks. Let us know what you think as well. Again, I do hope
Mhm.
that's the thing with the Mandoverse. It hasn't been my absolute favorite. I loved it, but it hasn't been my absolute favorite because it's been too grounded for me. And I do want them to push. I do want them to go for it. The thing I love about Star Wars most is the weird space fantasy vibes. So but with the space fantasy, but the politics and the religious institutions that try to come around it and try to make sense of it. But yeah, the mystical space fantasy, which I mean, High Republic has had both as well too. I mean, it has had its grounded stories, grounded moments, grounded characters, not force sensitive characters. So there we go. I do wonder. Here's the one thing I will say: one continuity, bit of continuity. There's going to be a Senteca in the Acolyte. Just thinking about Naboo and the connection there, and how the Sentecas are in Naboo, and Phantom Menace, everything going on, how beautiful that is, and of course, Lord Senteca in the sequel trilogy in Force Awakens. So that's something I do can see Leslie Headland picking up, thinking about space prospectors and exploration, and needing a Senteca to help the intrepid sleuths chart a course through hyperspace, something like that. That's my thought. So
who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. So.
But yeah, exciting things.
Right on.
Oh,
yeah. Here we go.
Right.
Are we good? We're good.
We're good.
We're
I guess
good.
I'm
We're
going to
good.
get to guess out. Right, I'll do the outro. All right. I think that's a good point to wrap things up for this week. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Let us know what you thought of the conversation tonight. I blame the time shift for my confusion here.
All good.
Comment below. And of course, you can follow us on the Twitter. You can follow us at the Ion Cannon Pod. Again, Ion Cannon Pod, where I retweet stuff, post things, and lots of interesting theories. And of course, you can follow us at follow me at JID2021, where I post rants, sometimes thoughts and comments, and other things as well. Matthew, where they can follow you.
You can follow me on Twitter at NEOG485, Instagram MNEOG1138. Of course, at Iron Cannon Pod, Twitter and Instagram. Also, thanks for joining us the Underworld Facebook page, Underworld Twitter, Iron Cannon Twitch, all over the place. And of course, Star Wars Underworld YouTube. Well, as
subscribe,
always.
like,
Yes.
click that like button. Actually, we got 7 likes, so I'm happy about that. And don't forget to join us on the Star Wars Underworld Discord. Link in the description. It should work. Not just tell me, just comment, and I'll send you something. But and for next week, we have no idea. We haven't figured it out yet.
We'll figure it out.
What? People on Twitter, leave us some suggestions. You know what? I'm happy to hear from our audience. What do you guys think we should talk about? We'll think of something. You guys give us something to think about. And until then, Matthew, let's blow this thing and go home.